To order at 7 p.m. Sorry.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Up next, we have public comments and recognition of guests. Hello, Megan, our one guest. And then up next, we have presentations. And I don't believe we have any presentations this month. And then next, we have communication. The IASB liaison talking points is in your board packet for review. Up next is committee reports, and we did have a committee meet this evening. Is there anything that the committee wants to say now, or just wait for during the?
We're going to talk about the HVAC now, and then we'll
Okay.
talk about the subject when the subject comes up.
Okay.
We had a conversation with Rusty about the HVAC system. The HVAC system for the district office, and between United Mechanical and GHR, we're able to. He's going to go back to GHR and talk to them and see if they can lower down their $8,000 bid to draw up plans and then put it out for bid. And I can at least say for me personally, I was thinking that was going to be their 10% mark and expecting that cost was going to be $80,000 to heat and cool that small space. They think it's now going to be $35,000 to $40,000, which is a much more palatable price tag. And Rusty's going to go back to them and see if they can drop their price to 10% of the project and see if GHR is willing to work with us on that. And then it's still a stamped, certified set of plans, which United Mechanical was unable to do for us.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay. If not, then up next we have administrative reports, and Ryan, you're up as superintendent. They're always like that. It happens. We just keep pushing.
Oh, there we go. All right. Well, as you know, this is my day 16 on the job, so it's been quite a transition. I've enjoyed it so far, but during this time, just been really trying to learn the lay of the land in a variety of ways. We've been doing some basic budget workshops recently with Ms. Wallace, who's in our finance department. Went last week, just learning basics about functions and codes, state funding, school finance in general. It was great because you have first-year superintendents and you had five-year superintendents all kind of learning together. Even after 5 years, people are still going back just because of the intricacies that are included within school finance. So it was a very helpful workshop. Diane Robertson put that on, and she's wonderful. We did find out just some basic things about state and federal funding resources and sources, I should say. It looks like for a majority of what we receive from both state and federal funding will be kind of flat, similar to what they were last year, maybe some slight decreases in areas. There are a few grants and money that we've traditionally received, like Title II, which we use professional development, Title III for ELL and REAP, that look like right now there will be no funding for this upcoming school year. In the next 30 days, though, we should have a little bit more knowledge of where we are with those funds. So we'll keep an eye on that closely. In addition, just kind of reading through district policies and procedures, getting ready for that. There's a lot of policy out there. And so I've been spending my evenings kind of going over and making sure, it's really interesting. Once you read through that policy, you start to see all the connections from day to day that happen around the district. So that is good to see. Also coming out soon will be Press Policy 119. So Policy Committee, you'll be receiving that here in the next week or so. So be on the lookout. Yeah, other than that, just kind of doing some basic meetings with different stakeholders, trying to get connected with different people, whether they're department heads or admin groups, just learning more about what people are needing and wanting and kind of the direction that we're moving. Relationships are super important. I feel like once we do that and when people have that trust built, we can help create a future of collaboration. So that's something that I view as really critical as we move forward. So that's kind of general superintendent report for this month. Next, we have up our QFR and a little bit about that so you don't see anything in front of you tonight. So we are currently still working on putting that together. I will tell you, what I can tell you, expenditures look really good at this moment, though we are working on our revenue allocations. So we've noticed that a few more things need to be finalized with those revenue allocations. We're also still having some inconsistencies with some of the Skyward reporting and what those budgets are, what that reporting is creating. You know, sometimes we'll receive a certain number and another time we'll receive a different number. So there's some reporting things that we're working through. On a positive note, we had some really good success at the end of the day today, and we're able to identify some things, but I want to make sure that I have an accurate number for you, and so I will have that to you in August. Two things with that. Number one, I also want to do a finance committee meeting in August. We'll do two things with that. One, we'll go over the QFR. Number two, we will also look at the tentative budget prior to our board meeting that night. So I'll be sending out a message this week about scheduling a time for that. Okay?
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, what impact will the reduction in these title funds have on our ability to do our job?
Great question. At this point, still a little bit unsure. So as we develop the tentative budget, we'll have a little bit more information and know kind of the impact that it has. Those funds are somewhere, you know, in between $30,000 to $60,000. So they aren't huge, substantial numbers, as opposed to like some of the ESSER money that we were receiving prior. So that impact is still be determined. You know, once we start to put together this tentative budget, which starts very, very soon, we'll kind of get more information there. By next month, we'll be able to have some idea of how that funding or lack of funding will impact us.
Okay. The curriculum, technology, operations and maintenance, transportation, and finance update or reports are in your packet. Up next, we have approval of consent items. If there are no questions or comments on those, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda items listed on attachment A as presented. Josh?
Second.
Larson? Yes. Okay, now we have old business, a discussion of unit office HVAC work.
Jason's going to lead that for us.
We covered the HVAC work for the unit office when we talked about the committee stuff, so it
Oh.
hasn't really changed from there unless any of the other committee members, Jonathan or Josh or Sid, want to talk about it. It is no action for tonight.
Okay.
More news from Rusty when he gets it.
Okay. All right, so no motion on that. Okay, so we move to new business, approval of auditor firm for fiscal year 25 audit.
All right, so we have just had some conversation recently, just kind of in the office, just about the auditing process. And so one of the things that came up was just some of the best practice around auditing and that practice in general. So what a lot of people share within an organization, school organization this big, is that sometimes between every 5 and 7 years we can look at changing auditing firms, kind of give us a new lens or a fresh perspective on kind of how we're doing things in district. And so based off of that, you know, I reached out to 3 different firms. You can see those quotes there that are listed inside of the information. CLA is a very large accounting firm that is out of the Bloomington, Peoria area. You can see kind of the fee that's listed there. Look at 2 other ones. One was out of Washington, Illinois. Unfortunately, they are not taking any new clients at this time, and so they did not provide any feedback to us. Then we also reached out to Phillips and Associates. You know, they have a very similar cost that we utilize for the auditor that we are in business with now. You know, one of the things that is a little bit different, that they would not be able to come in until September, late September, so we would not receive our AFR until December. If you realize this year, and kind of we're following along, we did not receive our AFR this year until June, so that was really late. Typically, ISB wants that to be done by around October 15th, so we would be after that deadline, but after speaking with Phillips and Associates, they were on a call with ISB, sometime in the last month, and during that time, ISB is aware that there are districts that just, there's a lot of delays. You know, there's just a lot of people that need these audits, and there's not tons of auditors. It's just taking a long time, so delays are expected at this point. Hoping that once we get through this year, we realize that next year we'd be able to be on a normal routine and schedule, so we have our AFR by October 15th, more of a, you know, what we should be doing annually.
Are there any penalties for getting it late? For turning in that AFR late? Or you just apply for extensions?
Good question. I can research into that. We just apply for extensions currently. That's all it's been up to this point, is that you just file for an extension with the ROE, you're given that extension. I'm not sure if there are any additional penalties, but I can check into that.
So far, they hadn't hit us with any because of knowing that there just weren't firms able to
Yeah.
do this, and
Yeah.
your hands are kind of tied that when you're waiting for, so far we didn't with being as late as we were this year, so hopefully we can get it done at least in the same calendar year. That would be great.
It would be great.
And have we reached out any current customers of Phillip and Associates to see if they've been pleased with their services?
Well, I've reached out to, so Ridgeview, Ridgeview is going with them this year. Their superintendent had received some positive feedback, and actually was the one who suggested Phillips and Associates to me. All of these individuals that you actually see listed in the quote were recommendations from area superintendents. There was another firm on there that I really liked and had a great connection and conversation with. It was just about 3 times as much as what, you know, some of the other ones were, and just from a financial, just, you know, just try to be financially conscious, you know, and so on. I just feel like Phillips is the best direction to go. They also specialize in school contracts, so they work with a lot of school districts, so it is not something new to them. They're another company, too, that would come out in person. What we've been seeing, too, with some of our audits and so on is a lot of like Dropbox and sending everything electronically and not coming and actually seeing what's happening in this space. And even our finance team was on board with having them come in and be there in person. So I think that's more of the direction that we're looking.
And then another question, how does it compare to what we're paying currently for, well, our current auditor?
Right around the same, so
Okay.
right around that 15,000 number.
Great.
Yep. And you'll notice on there is an additional 6,000 that's listed on there for a single audit. We're not sure whether or not if we'll meet that threshold to do a single audit for this school year. So that's why he listed on there as an optional number. That could be a part of it, it may not be. When you add the additional audit like this year, I say 15,000, that's just for our single audit that we did this year. I mean, I'm sorry, for our normal AFR. We have to do an additional single audit this year too that our current auditor is doing because we receive so many federal so much money in federal funding. With ESSER going away, you know, and us not having that revenue coming in from them, I'm not sure if we'll need to continue that for next year or not. We're still kind of waiting on that.
On the SIG, on this paper that was handed out with the bills on it, it's actually Cole and Associates is on here for $15,650. So I just happened to notice it tonight,
Yeah.
like right when I sat down and kind of did, I was like, oh, yeah.
And that's just
And that's for it being, you know, due last October, and we got it in June, so, yeah, so. Well, and Ryan, you had mentioned to me last week when we were talking about Phillips, that they also said that maybe if there were questions, that they would be willing to take phone calls, which I guess was kind of surprising to me, that a lot of places you can't just call if you have a question, but that they were willing to
yeah, they're
say,
willing
yes, let's
to-
have, you know, so maybe to prevent from something that needs fixed down the line. Again, that was shocking to me that you can't call. It's just very weird.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no further questions, I need a motion and a second to approve Phillips and Associates to complete the FY25 audit for the Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Sig? Jason?
Yes.
Yes. Up next is approval of purchase of new band uniforms.
All right, and this is kind of a follow-up from last month. Mr. Mitchell came and shared a presentation band uniforms. So if you remember last time, the current uniforms that we have are 20-plus years old. The program has really taken really good care of them for those 20 years. Mr. Mitchell has done a lot of work in finding some quality options. He was able to really have two main ones that he saw. DeMolin is one. Very high quality design staff. Basically just the product itself has a strong warranty, a lot of adjustability within the uniform, lifetime warranty of matching in production. So if there's ever a situation where we need to replace something or add more, that's available for us to do. So you can see that the number is about $734 a uniform. If you remember from the month before, it was around $822 per uniform. So he was able to do some work getting that number reduced. Fruhoff is the other one that they worked with. They have not been very responsive. Mr. Mitchell would like to move forward with DeMolin. I think with the amount of time and how well we used those last ones, I think it is time to move forward, and I would like to approve us moving forward with DeMolin as our uniform.
Any questions or comments?
Yes, I noticed the two different bids. One of them was for 60 uniforms, one was for 55. What's that about?
I just think initially he was going to bid for more, but he realized the cost was going to be a lot more, so he reduced it to 55.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one that you see from Fruhoff was actually its original. And so I think after we came through and some of the conversations about reducing the price overall per uniform, we kind of looked at that and kind of adjusted.
Well,
And
they
they did.
got it down to Jason's target.
Yeah.
Pretty close to that.
Yeah,
I like the fact that DeMolin is an Illinois company.
absolutely.
Too. They do have shipping and handling. From Greenville, is there any reason we can't send a driver there and pay our driver to go pick the things up?
That's a good question. I can research that and see if that's a possibility. I'm not sure how much money, I'm not sure what the savings would be. I probably would be a little bit, so I can definitely look and see if that's an option.
I'd rather pay our driver if it's possible.
Assuming that doesn't somehow avoid the warranty.
Well, it's FOB is, so as soon as it's loaded, they're done.
Yeah. I mean, I can look into the feasibility of that. So, yeah, I can definitely do that. Either way, I mean, are you guys on board with moving forward with the quote? Okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
I also appreciate that they're made in Illinois.
Yeah.
Beep, beep, beep. We're at band uniforms. Did you have any questions about band uniforms?
So.
Okay, that's where we're at on the agenda. If there are no further comments, questions, I need a motion and a second to approve new high school band uniforms for Blue Ridge CUSD 18 as presented.
Second.
Sig and Larson.
Yes.
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 Like multitasking. Yes. Up next, we have approval of a credit card for the new superintendent.
Yeah, this is a pretty standard one overall, but just that I need to have a credit card to make different district purchases. A lot of times they're related to like travel expenses, hotels, conferences, professional memberships. Sometimes there are just things that require a credit card to be paid online and don't have other purchasing options, and so that's why we're asking for this.
Okay. If there are no questions or comments, I need a motion and a second to approve a $5,000 credit limit on the district credit card for Blue Ridge CUSD 18 Superintendent Ryan Payton as presented. Sig? Josh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Up next is approval of change order for track project septic system and miscellaneous items.
Okay, so You do have some items there that are inside of your board packet in relation to some of the bills and change order information. Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about this? With the committee report, this is a conversation that we talked about during our committee report with Rusty, and so Jason will kind of share a little bit about what we've come up with.
So Rusty's been working on this for 3 to 4 months pretty solidly, trying to get some movement in between DeWitt-Pike County Health Department on the septic system, and it's just been very, very slow. They've been unreceptive to working with him on this. It took one of our past board members asking for our state rep to actually kind of step in and ask if they could move along on this. But what it boils down to is that we have 2 options that we need to look at for tonight. One of them is on the first part of it is on the first set of sheets, and it's for a total of $20,515. And this is if we're going with a single tank. And then we have to add $16,000 to that if we can't get the variance from the health department. And then we'd essentially add a whole nother tank, a whole nother 1,500 gallon septic tank plus a chemical distribution system for it as well. And the goal for tonight would be to say that we would be willing to go up to that 2-tank system at the $36,500 mark, with the hopes that we get the variance for the single tank system that's in the main part of that bid. If any of the other committee members have anything they want to add to that, but it boils down to those 2 prices in the hopes that we'll actually put the motion out that we accept the higher one if it's necessary, and we won't find out until tomorrow. So.
Yeah, and this is just important that we move forward with tonight for a couple of reasons. Well, one of the main reasons is this is what's really holding up our entire next steps and the momentum of our project. So this has to be completed before we can really get this project completed. Correct.
Right, yeah, and Rusty has done a great, I mean, I've only been on the board a little bit and only known a little bit about it from all the travails he's gone through, but I mean, I love the idea that he's got everything stacked up, ready to go, so as soon as he gets a decision tomorrow, he's already got the contractors, everybody ready to go, so.
Yep.
I really appreciate his level of professionalism in pushing this through.
Good. I can let him know that. And yes, and I'll be in contact with him this evening with the decision because he's ready to contact them first thing in the morning so we can get this thing moving. Or even tonight. Yeah, absolutely.
So basically, if we don't get our variance, that's our only option.
The option would be that extra $16,000. So the variance means that we would be able to go with a single tank setup,
Yeah.
which is that $20,000 mark. If we don't get the variance, then it's an extra 16 to get that second tank installed, which we can we can install that later if we decide that we need that because we're getting bigger crowds or whatever else. We can always upgrade that system later on, but we're looking at the right now part of this versus
Okay.
eventually.
Funds were already set aside for this. They were set aside in the event that this was the worst case scenario, that we had to do a force main out to John Street. So the funding's there for it. It's not an additional thing. It's just details hadn't been ironed out on it yet.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? There are, when we do the motion, I just want to point out, there were a couple other things in there that included some painting and some keying of the concession. So it will say, and miscellaneous items, so it would be that. Christy, do you think we need to change the, anything about the motion? I'm going to make it just says to approve the change order for the track project septic system. Do you think that covers us? Do you want me to say up to including a second tank if necessary? I just want to make sure we're,
Okay.
I'll add, I was concerned about the really very small tank. If you do end up having big events or sell-out crowds and stuff, and Rusty addressed that with the, could add a second tank in the future. There's room for that expansion. And also that the system that we're looking at now would have a float alarm some protections there, we'd be able to monitor that through the first year or season or so. And then also that there's bathrooms accessible from outside that would still be available to be used for large events. So that kind of addressed my concerns there with the sizing of the system, septic versus sewer.
Great points, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, are there any other questions? Comments? Okay, if not, I need a motion and a second to approve the change order for the track project septic system up to including a second tank if necessary and miscellaneous items for Blue Ridge CUSD number 18 as presented. Sig and Larson?
Yes.
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 Yes. And next we have closed session. I need a motion and a second to move from open session to closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district at 7:26. Sig. Jason.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.